All right, time now for our press review. Dipti Gorlorn joining us in the studio. Morning to you, Dipti.
I will.
Beginning with the Independent that takes us to the heart of the U.S. migrant crisis, Honduras.
That's right. The British Daily actually calls it ground zero of the U.S. migrant crisis. The bulk of those on the migrant caravan last year came from Honduras, and tens of thousands of people continue to make the perilous journey to the U.S. despite deterrences, despite the detention centers, and despite those, for instance, a photo of a father and daughter that we saw recently who had drowned. Studies say the numbers of immigrants from Central America has increased 28-fold in nearly 50 years, with an increase in people from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Why? These countries are plagued by high youth unemployment, a rocketing murder rate, gang violence, and corruption.
And immigration sure to dominate Donald Trump's campaign re-election program. You found an article looking at a surprise base of voters who could help him win.
That's right, and that group of voters are first-generation Chinese Americans. Americans who came, naturalized Americans who came to the U.S. to pursue postgraduate education, then had families and raised their children in the U.S. They've gone from some of them having never voted to now endorsing candidates, many of them conservative, and this group of voters have really distinctively conservative views when it comes to things like competition, individual accomplishment, and meritocracy. What's fascinating in this article from the National Review, a conservative magazine, is that, these Chinese Americans have community power. In the past, they may have endorsed Democrats, but they're gravitating more and more towards Republicans. Their key interest is education and employment and fighting against affirmative action in university admissions, for instance. This group of voters, they're self-made, they're capitalist, and they really love Donald Trump's pro-business strategy.
Well, let's stay in the U.S. then. Infamous drug lord El Chapo has been sentenced to life plus 30 years in prison.
That's right. Joaquin Guzman, El Chapo, a.k.a. El Chapo, will also have to pay more than $12 billion, and he faces life in prison plus 30 years. That's on the front page of El País, a Spanish paper there. Chapo, who we know escaped twice from supermax facilities in Mexico, will be spending his days at the supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. It's known as the ADX prison. It's the highest security penitentiary in the U.S., and it's being described as, quote, a sterilized version of hell. They're housed in individual soundproofed cells. They spend 23 hours of the day in isolation. They can go out to a windowless gym or a courtyard, but only in a sort of individual cage. There's no canteen, there's no mail, there's no TV, there's no visits. There's one telephone call a month. And then from day one, El Chapo, like all the prisoners, will have to earn his privileges. This is really hell on earth. In fact, a recent study showed that 70% of inmates develop some sort of mental illness in this facility.
Listen, on a different note, Dipti, you found that Democrats are calling for an investigation into a face-changing app.
That's right. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's called Faceapp. And if you're on social media right now, you'll pretty much notice that all your friends and celebrities are looking like they're about 70 or 80
Very
years.
old LeBron James.
That's a very old, but, he's got a bit of swagger there. So this is thanks to the face aging app called Faceapp. It snags celebrities like LeBron James, but also Drake, who looks incredibly good at 70 years old. Look at him there. He looks so good.
Oh, yeah.
Only problem is that this app is Russian. It was developed by Russian developers, and there are concerns about millions of photos potentially ending up on a Russian server, even if the developers say the photos are deleted within 48 hours. The Democrats have now called on, among others, the FBI to launch an investigation into national security. Is it a little hysterical? Maybe. Is it tinged with some Russia phobia? Probably. But remember that Democrats were hacked in 2016, just before the presidential elections. We are now entering a pre-election period, so I guess they're taking no chances.
True. Good news for me, though, because I need an app that just makes me look younger. All right. Thanks very much, Deepti.